Hello everyone, my name is Heather and welcome to the channel Bookables. So we talked about our favorite books of 2023. Now we're going to talk about the not so favorite ones, the worst books that I read. So let's just cut to the disclaimer. So of course, as always, if I talk about any book in this video that you love, that is great. I am happy for you. You keep on loving that book. If you love it, shout it from the rooftops. You do you. These are books that I personally didn't really love, and that is okay. We each have different perspectives. We each have different perspectives. We each have different opinions, and we each have different favorites, likes, and dislikes. And that is what makes the earth go round. If we all were the same, then it would be boring. So yeah, if I mention a book today that you love and adore, that's great. You might hate a book that I really love, and that's okay. I understand, and that's just how it goes. So yeah, I have a few here that I read this year that I just really didn't like, and I'm going to share with you why, and let's get into it. I don't love making these, but it's important to talk about books you really love, but it's also important to talk about books you don't like, because not every book you read is going to be a 5-star. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. So first up, I would have to say my least favorite book that I read in 2023 was The Engagement Party by Darby Kane. This was my first book by Darby Kane. Actually, you know what? I DNF'd one of her books this year too. I think it was The Invitation. I got like maybe 30 pages in and I was like, this is just not for me. And so I like cut it. So then I thought maybe Darby Kane is not the author for me. And then I learned that she had a new one coming out, The Engagement Party, and it was kind of pitched as like a 90s, like kind of summer thriller, like with the night, like thriller movies, like kind of being compared to I Know What You Did Last Summer, which is one of my favorite thrillers. I don't watch a lot of thrillers, but I did back in the day. And, you know, that had Sarah Michelle Gellar, Freddie Prinze Jr., Jennifer Love Hewitt, Ryan Phillippe, everybody with the 3 names was in there. And so I was like, okay, I will read it because it's got the 90s nostalgia. Am I, if not a 35-year-old woman that lives for anything 90s? So I read it. Did not like it. Like, it was just horrible. The characters were horrible. Not one redeeming character. They made dumb decisions after dumb decisions. Like, you know those classic horror tropes that you're just like, just leave, just go, you know? And they just were stupid. And they were just, there's no redeemable characters. Like, I understand, I always say that I do need a character to kind of identify with, a character to root for, a character to like. This one had none, so I really loathed it. It just wasn't it for me. I did not like it. Wasn't it for me? I'm gonna go with, but I hope I'm right. But either way, this book, another thriller. I guess thrillers let me down a lot. I don't know why, but this one was again a summer thriller. This one was set in Outer Banks, North Carolina, which I have been to so many times because I live in Virginia. They're kind of sister states, obviously. So I was like, oh, a summer thriller set in Outer Banks. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun. It was boring. Nothing literally happened. Nothing happened. It was just, and the big twist, I didn't even care. It just was so boring. Again, full of unlikable characters, unredeemable characters. It was all about an accident that happened when it was like 20 years ago, and the remaining survivors meet up every year. And that sounds interesting, doesn't it? Well, it wasn't. It just wasn't very good. So we're going to move on to another book that just wasn't very good, and that is Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer. I was really excited for this one. I would say it's a disappointment for me because the cover, super cute, sprayed, whatever edges. This one is kind of set in Camelot time where, you know, it's medieval and all that kind of stuff. We follow Evie, who loses her job and she needs to find another one, and then she runs into what they call the villain in the forest. And what do you know? 6 months later, she is his assistant, and he's got like this whole bustling castle with a whole slew of employees. And I'm like, how is this possible? And it's basically about her working for the villain. And again, nothing happens, and the end twist was not that interesting. The characters weren't interesting. I don't think it was written very well. That's just me. This is a beloved book on Book Talk. So just, you know, if you love it, I'm happy for you. I think it's great. It just wasn't it for me. Like, it could have been really great, honestly. And that's what's sad about it for me, is I was really hoping it was going to be great. It had a cool premise. It had a cool plot, and it just really fell on every part of that for me. So just moving on. Moving on to romance, I have Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune. So Carly Fortune blew into the scene of the booktube world 2 years ago with Every Summer After, which I did enjoy. I do enjoy that book. I think I rated it 5, but now as I look back, I'm like, oh, come on, 5. I was excited to read her sophomore novel, if you will, Meet Me at the Lake. This book, oh my gosh, this whole book's premise is about two characters that met like 15 years ago. They know each other for one day. They spend a day with each other. One day. And then 15, and they had plans to meet up with each other in 1 year. Spoiler warning, she shows up, he does not. And so now it's like 15 years later, he shows back up, things are happening, they have all these feelings, and I'm like, with what? You guys knew each other for one day. You were not in contact. You don't even know, like, I don't get it. The romance did not make any sense to me. Wasn't feeling it. The setting could have been a lot better. It was kind of set in like this dirty dancing area where it's like kind of like a summer cabin type of place where people will rent or own and things like that. And it just could have been great, but it wasn't. And just, I mean, I just don't get, like, they had so much feelings for each other. But like, if you really, you know, it's an annoyance. I'm gonna move on to another romance book that disappointed me, and that is Wreck the Halls by Tessa Bailey. So when you look at this book, you think Christmassy, right? It's got a Christmas tree on it. It's got snowflakes on it. It's got lights on it. It's got a wreath. It's got mistletoe wreaths on it. This is a Christmassy book, right? It's not. It is not. And that is my main, it's one of the main flaws I have with this book. The cover is very Christmassy, and it says it's a standalone holiday rom-com. It is not a holiday book. It is not. I'm not mad at it for not being a holiday book, but don't market it, don't make the cover, don't pitch it as a holiday book when you're not. It's just like when you throw dogs on the cover of a book and there are no dogs in the book. What do you think I bought the book for? I wanted the dogs. I want the dogs. If there's no dogs in it, what's the point, you know? Anyway, maybe I'm the only one who makes that mad. But it's just, that infuriated me. I read this in December because I thought it was a holiday book. You could read this in June for all I care. It just doesn't matter. But another thing that annoyed me were the characters. Again, this is kind of like Meet the Lake, where these two characters had such big feelings for each other, but don't know anything about each other. So this book, we follow Melody and Beat, and they both have moms that were in this rock group, kind of like the Bangles. I think they're called, I don't even know what they're called, Steelbirds. And basically Steelbirds broke up when both of the mothers were pregnant with Melody and Beat. And they never talk about why they broke up. They'll never do a reunion. They hate each other. It's kind of like a Fleetwood Mac kind of thing, you know what I'm saying? And so basically in this book, it's now Beat and Melody met when they were 15 years old, and they met one time because they were doing an interview, and they both had such a really draw connection. He's like, I know you, and she's like, I know you, and like, la la la. You think they would talk, but they don't. And then now again, 15 years later, they're meeting up again because they are trying to reunite Steel Birds, and it's like the romance picks up like that, because as soon as they see each other again, they're like, oh my gosh, I fell in love with you when I was 15, and me too. And I'm like, you don't know each other. Yes, you had similar childhoods with having famous parents, but that's about it. No, the romance was not great in this book. The characters were not great. It was pitched as a holiday. It's not. Moving on upstairs, another thriller. That's probably dominates my list, by Lisa M. Matlin. This book, I didn't loathe it. It wasn't a worse book for me, but it kind of was. The plot twist was not that twisty. It was basically about a woman that buys this house that a murder happened in years ago, and weird things starts happening. And she is just such an unlikable character. And not only that, she's unreliable. And I loathe that in thrillers. When you have a character that tends to maybe drink a lot or do a lot of recreational activity, if you get what I'm saying, that sometimes they're like, did I do that? Did I say that? Did I see that? I'm not sure. And so you're not sure. So you're like, how can I believe you if you don't even believe yourself? And it's just, it wasn't that great. It wasn't horrible, but like, it was only 260 pages. And it felt too long. I just didn't love it. It wasn't like the worst thriller I've ever read this year. We've already talked about that. But it was one of the ones I was really hoping to love, but I didn't, because nothing really happened. It was just boring as mess, basically. And then, you know, we're going to talk about disappointing reads. We'll talk about another disappointing thriller, Good Girl, Bad Girl by Alice Feeney. I read Daisy Darker by her last year. Loved it. It made my favorites list. She has a great way with atmospheric and her settings and her thrillers. And this one was so boring. This one had a lot of point of views that was not necessary. I don't love that. If we have more than 5 point of views, I ain't gonna remember that. I'm just not. And I couldn't even tell you. I think it's about a girl that has a tumultuous relationship with her mother, but then also she works in a nursing home, and then also somebody escaped. I don't know. It just had so many things in it, and it didn't make sense. And this is more of a mystery than it is a thriller for people compare it to that. And I'm like, yes, it is. This is a mystery book, yes. Thrilling, it is not. And it is not that great. Like, the twists weren't that great. The characters weren't that great. The setting, Alice Feeney is kind of known for her settings, wasn't a great setting at all. Like, wasn't. So I was very, very sad about it, honestly. And I think that's it. That's all the books I can think of that I just really did not like and wanted to love but didn't. And so they are technically my worst books of the year, and that saddens me, but it happens to everybody. We all read books that we didn't love. I'm sure I'm going to ask you right now to leave some books that you did not like at all, and I'm sure some of you are going to comment books I've loved this year, and that's okay. We can still be friends. We're still cool, you and I, because we have different opinions. That's fine. But either way, these are the books that I just didn't love. Like, just sad to say. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I will see you in my next video. Bye.